Welcome to our exploration of the historical differences between serfs and slaves. While both groups faced significant hardships, their experiences and statuses were quite distinct. Let's dive in. Serfs were agricultural laborers bound to a lord's land during the feudal system, primarily in medieval Europe. They were not considered property but were tied to the land they worked. In contrast, slaves were individuals who were considered property of their owners. They had no personal rights and were forced to work without compensation, often under brutal conditions. Serfs had a legal status that granted them certain rights, such as the ability to marry, own property, and seek justice in the lord's court, albeit with limitations. Slaves, however, had no legal rights. They could be bought, sold, or traded at the whim of their owners, and their status was inherited by their children. Serfs were required to work the land for their lord and pay rent, often in the form of crops. They were allowed to keep a portion of what they produced for their own sustenance. Slaves had no economic freedom. They worked without pay and were forced to labor under harsh conditions, with no benefits or rights to the fruits of their labor. Serfs lived in small cottages on the lord's estate. While their living conditions were often poor, they had some degree of stability and community among fellow serfs. Slaves lived in even harsher conditions, often in cramped quarters with little to no personal space. Their lives were marked by fear and uncertainty. Serfs primarily worked in agriculture, tending to crops and livestock. They had a seasonal rhythm to their work, which was tied to the agricultural calendar. Slaves performed a wide range of labor, from agricultural work to domestic service and skilled trades. Their work was often grueling and relentless. While limited, serfs had some opportunities for social mobility. They could earn their freedom through various means, such as paying for it or through exceptional service. For slaves, social mobility was nearly impossible. Some could gain freedom through purchase or escape, but this was fraught with danger and uncertainty. Serfs could marry and raise families, and their family units were important for their social structure. They often worked together on the land. Slaves could also form families, but their relationships were often unstable. Families could be torn apart by sale or punishment, leading to deep emotional trauma. Serfs maintained cultural identities and traditions, often celebrating local festivals and customs that reflected their community ties. Slaves often preserved their cultural identities through music, storytelling, and religious practices, despite the oppressive conditions they faced. Religion played a significant role in the lives of serfs. They often attended church services and participated in religious festivals, which provided a sense of community. For slaves, religion was a source of hope and resilience. Many found solace in spiritual practices and created their own forms of worship, often in secret. Serfdom was prevalent in medieval Europe, particularly during the feudal system, where lords owned land and serfs worked it in exchange for protection. Slavery has existed in various forms throughout history, from ancient civilizations to the transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly brought millions to the Americas. Serfdom began to decline in the late 18th and 19th centuries, with many countries abolishing the practice as societies modernized and industrialized. The abolition of slavery was a long and arduous process, culminating in significant movements in the 19th century, leading to the emancipation of enslaved people in various countries. The legacy of serfdom can still be seen in some European cultures, where historical ties to land and community remain strong. While both serfs and slaves faced oppression, their experiences were shaped by different legal statuses, rights, and social structures. Understanding these differences is crucial for grasping historical contexts. Studying the differences between serfs and slaves helps us understand the complexities of social hierarchies and the importance of human rights throughout history. Engaging with history allows us to learn from the past and work towards a more equitable future. Discussions about serfdom and slavery are vital for understanding our world today. In conclusion, while serfs and slaves both endured hardships, their experiences were shaped by different systems of labor and social structures. Recognizing these differences is essential for understanding history. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. For more resources and homeschool materials, check the link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.